From massive tunnels leading up to vaults to families being held hostage at gunpoint in cages, these are 10 of the biggest bank robberies of all time. Number 10. The Banco Central Burglary. In the summer of 2005, a 25-member gang set up a fake landscaping business and spent 3 months digging a 256-foot tunnel towards the Banco Central in Fortaleza, Brazil. Neighbors saw van loads of soil being removed daily. The tunnel was well constructed with wood and plastic lining, as well as lighting and air circulation systems. On Saturday, August 6th, the gang walked through the tunnel that led up through the bank's vault floor and removed 5 containers of 50 real notes worth $30 million. They managed to evade or disable the bank's alarms completely. The robbery went unnoticed until the bank opened for business the following Monday. The money was uninsured due to it being too low of a risk to justify the insurance premiums. The money in the vault was there to be examined to decide if it should be recirculated or destroyed. The bills were not numbered sequentially, making them nearly impossible to trace. Only 8 people were arrested over the following 2 years, and only $3.7 million was recovered. Number 9. The Dunbar Armored Robbery. 6 men pulled off the largest cash robbery that ever occurred in the history of the United States. Alan Pace, the safety inspector for the Dunbar Armored Trucking Company, led the group. Pace recruited 5 childhood friends to rob the Dunbar facility vault. On the night of September 12, 1997, Pace used his keys to open the facility in Los Angeles, California. He timed the security cameras so they could avoid them. They broke in and ambushed 2 guards on their lunch breaks at 12:30 a.m. Pace knew exactly which bags had the highest denominations of non-sequential bills. He also knew where the security camera tapes were and took them. In 30 minutes, the robbers loaded a U-Haul with cash worth $30.1 million. Police quickly realized it was an inside job and examined Pace, but couldn't find anything. The robbers laundered the money through phony businesses. Eventually, one of the robbers loaned some of the stolen money to a friend without removing the original cash straps. After his arrest, he confessed and named his co-conspirators. Pace was sentenced to 24 years in prison and remains incarcerated at a federal correctional institute in Safford. Less than half of the cash was ever recovered. Number 8. The Northern Bank Robbery. The week before Christmas in 2004, groups of armed men in Belfast, Northern Ireland, dressed up as police officers and broke into the homes of 2 bank managers of the Northern Bank. They held their families hostage at gunpoint. The following day, the managers were instructed to report to work as normal. At lunchtime, one of the managers received a sum worth $1.3 million, placed it in a holdall, and walked out of the bank with it. He went to a bus stop where he met up with one of the robbers. He handed over the holdall with the stolen money and then returned to work. This was a test run for the main heist planned for the evening. After the workday ended, the bank managers gave access to the gang members. The robbers entered the bank through the staff entrance and went to the bank's cash handling and storage facility, where there was an unusually large amount of cash being prepared for distribution in the ATMs for the busy Christmas shopping season. They transferred cash worth $34 million to several vehicles parked outside and then fled. The family members were released shortly before midnight, although multiple investigations were conducted. Recognizing the great expertise of this operation, the case remains unsolved. Number 7. The United California Bank Heist. Emil Dencio, a criminal from Ohio, assembled a team of 6 professional burglars. They flew to California and rented a townhouse where they planned a heist on a bank where they had heard that President Richard Nixon kept a multi-million-dollar slush fund. On March 24, 1972, they broke into the safe deposit vault at United California Bank in Laguna Niguel. The crew disarmed the alarm, blew through the reinforced concrete roof with dynamite, stole $55 million worth of cash and valuables, and fled after meticulously scrubbing down the townhouse. The burglary was executed perfectly. A few months later, the same group perpetrated a similar crime in Ohio. The FBI linked the 2 burglaries and uncovered transportation records of 5 of the burglars on the flight to California using their real names. They then traced the townhouse that was rented and found fingerprints in the dishwasher that was never run. This led to the arrest and conviction of the entire gang. They were also able to recover most of the loot. This story became the basis of the movie Finding Steve McQueen. Number 6. The Knightsbridge Security Deposit Robbery. In 1986, Valerio Vici relocated from Italy, where he was wanted for 50 armed robberies, to London. Upon his arrival, he quickly started organizing his next hit. He secured help from Parvez Latif, the managing director of Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Center. Latif was a cocaine user that was heavily in debt. On July 12, 1987, two men walked into the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Center bank and asked to rent a safe deposit box. When the men were shown to the vault, they drew handguns and overpowered the bank manager and security guards. The thieves then hung up a closed sign on the bank door, and they let in some accomplices. They broke into as many of the safes as they could and made off with cash and valuables worth $77 million. An hour after their departure, the shift changed. The new staff discovered the crime and immediately alerted the police. Police recovered a bloody fingerprint and traced it to Vici, who had fled to South America. The police arrested several of his accomplices who were later convicted of the crime. Vici was eventually arrested when he returned to England to ship his Ferrari to his new home. Police blocked the road, smashed his windshield, and dragged him out of his car. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison. On April 19, 2000, while on day release from prison, he was up to a new scheme with an accomplice. He was mistaken by police for an Albanian bandit and got involved in a gunfight, which resulted in his death. Number 5. The Securitas Depot Robbery. On the evening of February 21, 2006, Colin Dixon, the manager of the Securitas Depot in the United Kingdom, was pulled over while driving by what he thought was an unmarked police vehicle. A man approached him dressed as a police officer and instructed him to get into the car. Dixon was handcuffed by others in the vehicle and transported to a farm. Meanwhile, men dressed in police uniforms knocked on the door of his home and informed his wife and 8-year-old son that he was involved in a traffic accident. They drove him to the farm where he was being held and informed Dixon that failure to cooperate would result in harm to his family. The depot manager, his wife, and son were taken to the depot at gunpoint. Dixon was forced to give them access to the cash cages. The men clad in masks bound the 14 members of staff and locked them in bank cages, along with Dixon's wife and son. One staff member had a key and managed to raise an alarm. Police officers arrived on the scene and discovered the staff, the manager, and his family all bound but unharmed. The robbers managed to get away with cash worth over $92 million. Some of the robbers were caught and convicted. However, a key player remains missing and is presumed to have a large quantity of the stolen money. Number 4. The Brinks Map Burglary. On the morning of November 26, 1983, a security guard named Anthony Black let a group of 6 robbers enter into the Brinks Map warehouse at the Heathrow Airport in West London. Once inside, the gang poured petrol over staff and bribed them to share the vault combination with a lit match. Although they expected to steal approximately $4 million, they were pleasantly surprised to find over 6,000 pounds of gold bullion. They stole gold, diamonds, and cash worth over $128 million. They wished the guards a Merry Christmas on their way out and fled the scene. 2 of the robbers were convicted, but a majority of the gold was never recovered. Number 3. The British Bank of the Middle East Robbery. In January 1976, 8 armed men stole a record-setting amount of gold and jewels worth $210 million in Beirut when Lebanon was in the midst of a war. The Lebanese Civil War had recently entered its 9th month, and the capital was split into East and West Beirut. The Green Line was formed, separating the ravaged city with a demarcation line. Beirut's financial center was in the midst of the Green Line, including the British Bank of the Middle East, which was worth $2 billion. In one of the most brazen robberies of all time, the group of robbers burst through the wall of a Catholic church with explosives and quickly gained access to the bank. 4 hours later, they successfully created a second hole in the steel-reinforced vault. They loaded several vehicles with pure 12.5 kilogram gold bars and drove away, disappearing forever. None of the loot was ever recovered, and no one was ever arrested. The successful breach was undoubtedly performed by elites who knew their way around both explosive devices and reinforced walls. Number 2. The Dar es Salaam bank heist. To this day, not much is known about the 2007 robbery of the privately owned Dar es Salaam Bank in Baghdad, Iraq. Even the local police and Iraqi government couldn't agree on the basic details of the crime. At the time, Baghdad was in post-war chaos, with constant bombs going off, shootings being carried out, police repression, and terror attacks. As the Nazis proved during World War II, it was a great time to steal large amounts of money. On July 11th, 2017, no one noticed that $282 million was stolen. The morning after the theft, employees arrived to work to find the doors unlocked, the vault open, and the money gone. 3 guards who normally slept at the bank overnight had also disappeared. To this day, there are many unanswered questions. No one has been arrested, and none of the cash was ever recovered. It's unclear why so much American currency was on hand at the bank to steal. Typically, it would have had Iraqi dinar. The government suspects the thieves had contacts within local armed forces that allowed them to pass through the many checkpoints across Baghdad undetected. No information has been released about the whereabouts of the money or those responsible. Number 1. The Central Bank of Iraq robbery. Hours before the United States attacked Baghdad on March 18, 2003, Saddam Hussein's son, Qusay Hussein, calmly pulled off the biggest bank heist the world has ever seen. Saddam himself orchestrated the event, knowing that war was close. Qusay was Saddam's second eldest son, who was in charge of the military. He was greatly feared, often beating and raping strangers. He was at the top of the list for capture when the US invasion started. One day before the Iraq War began in 2003, Saddam Hussein sent 3 large trucks to the Central Bank of Iraq. Qusay walked in the front door of the bank with a handwritten note by his father asking to withdraw all of the money to keep it from enemy hands. Qusay successfully loaded $1 billion into the trucks over the next 5 hours without a single shot being fired. He vanished into the desert and dropped off the money at strategic points. Most of the loot was later recovered, with $650 million found in one of Saddam's palaces. American soldiers looted the cash they found during raids and made off with hundreds of thousands of dollars for themselves and their families. Over 30 US soldiers were later convicted of theft. Qusay Hussein was killed by the US military during an attack. Do you know about a bank robbery that didn't make our list? Tell us about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. New content is posted every week. Until next time, thanks for watching Best Top 5s.